Actually, this is exactly what Kavidi mentioned to me right after my presentation. He was like, "Yeah, you should have attached some." I asked him for some feedback, right? Like, "God, what did you think of my presentation?" And he was like, "You should have added some results because that's what's important, actually." And I was like, "Oh yeah,
Ah,
think of that."
there you have it. Okay.
Yeah,
All right,
exactly. So I'm
let's see what we
gonna.
can learn here.
Sorry.
Let's see what we can learn here. Yeah, the results are key.
I'm gonna share screen. Yeah. Just gonna share screen this. My,
Okay, let's
my,
go ahead and take a look. Okay.
okay. So I think one of my main projects throughout my time in DV is definitely the property revenue projection.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, and the script was already available before I came in. As
Okay.
in, I think my my before me was Kevin, and
Hmm.
he made a really good tutorial on how to handle it. So it wasn't hard for me to actually know how to use it. But my
Okay.
problem was understanding it. I did not understand what was going on inside these little boxes of coding.
I see.
It took me a while, um, especially when there were errors. You know, there were times when the script didn't work, and I was like really confused. And really asked me to do error handling, but I didn't know what to do. So but eventually, I worked it out. What I did was Googled the scripts. Actually, I just looked into each line and to see what's going on.
Okay.
I think it's just a process that has to be done in data engineer, uh, making models like this.
Yeah.
And I asked really a lot for each script, like, is it here? What's wrong? Is it here? It's here. And eventually, Kavidi and I had some meetings to work this out. And when we did and it worked, I also put it up here in the script, sorry, the best practice. I
Hmm.
put some we asked questions or some possible errors and solutions.
Ah, okay. Very good.
Uh, yeah, I think these are the four most commonly, not commonly, most possibly occurring errors.
Understood.
So yeah, I think that's it for the property
Can I ask
projection.
you questions about that, Kyla? Which are,
Of course.
what is the fundamental method that you're using to actually create the projection of the property? Can you tell me about like what is yeah like what is the method? What are you looking at to create more accurate projections?
So I guess I would start with what is the input for the projection. So the input we have is the data on the property itself from the location,
Okay.
the number of bedrooms, the area, and the property type. And
Okay.
from that data, we can extract data from the dash. That's one point, and get the occupancy
Hmm.
for properties that are similar to that.
Okay.
And the main, sorry, I have to see the year-on-year growth, and the main here. So the main how do you say, like, how we can predict a property's revenue is by looking at other properties that are similar
Okay.
to this property we're looking at on Airbnb data. So we do look at like external data, not just from like
Okay.
our own data.
Right.
And we see if you run over here, you see these are the most wait, no, not this one. Here. Top five most common properties. So from this, you can see like the properties that are similar to us. What
Mm,
um what ratings and reviews do they get, and what are their prices?
I
And yeah,
see. Okay.
what are their prices? So you can see like
Okay.
that.
Hmm.
Yeah, and then we take the year-on-year growth from Redash, and from that we can predict the um the revenue for the next
Interesting.
month.
Interesting. Do you have like a flow chart or like a visual representation of how the
Mm,
system works?
there isn't actually.
Okay. All right. So we have to kind of intuit from reading all
Yeah.
the pieces and then kind of
And
figure this
from
stuff
this
out.
actually,
Okay.
this is what I really need for the general equation.
Hmm.
So you just like to get the theory first, and then when you go into the coding, this is how you get it. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I got it. Interesting.
Mhm.
Um, do you think that, let's say during your internship, did you see any fundamental foundational improvements that could be made in the process itself, right? Like like
Mhm.
like in the algorithm itself, did you see any opportunities for revision or for improvement?
I think that we discussed this before with the video, but I can't remember. Oh God, I can't. I honestly can't think of it right now. I'm sorry, but
Okay. Okay, got it. So basically, what we do is we take a look at a property. We look at the attributes of the property, the amenities,
right.
location, the circumstance of that, and then we try to then find a sort of cluster of similar properties that have, let's say, similar attributes, right? And then
Mm.
we then make a comparison of how the new property is going to do. So is this K means or K? What is this called? Does it K mean space?
Oh, I'm not sure. I don't think it's because I've worked with means before. Um, I think I don't know. From what I know, like k-means is a type of clustering, right? And
Right.
clustering is different from like when you want to predict the data.
Right.
Clustering is like when you just want to see like um, groups of certain uh, properties, right? In this
Right.
context, but since in this projection, what we want to do is to predict the data. We
Uh-huh.
don't just want to see where our property comes in, but we want to see like the actual growth of our numbers, like the numbers for the income, the revenue. So
Got
I
it.
don't, yeah, I don't think, I may be wrong. I don't think it's, yeah.
Okay. So I guess my main question is how would you select the closest equivalent properties, right? Let's say, I don't know if there's a term for that. I think before we called them mirror properties, properties that are similar to the one that we are trying to forecast. And how would you know that these are actually, how would I put it? How would you actually know that they had something um, in common? Because what I'm thinking is this, right? Especially on something like Airbnb, two properties might have the same attributes. They might be, I don't know, they might have the same number of bedrooms, same location, but because there's something maybe we're not measuring, such as, let's say, one happens to be a tree house, right? And that's not maybe a parameter as an input, and the other happens to be more of a conventional family home. There will be this incompatibility or this false comparison that happens. Is there sort of? I just want to understand a little bit more about how we're making these comparisons.
Hmm. Okay. So um, for the comparisons, we have that input data right in the beginning.
Uh huh.
So, scroll up. All this,
Okay.
the room type, bedroom count, and we see what the properties that are similar from these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5
Right.
aspects.
Hmm.
So, but it's true what you say. I mean, we have the property type of entire villa, right? But
Hmm.
even if it says entire villa, we don't know if it's like, as you said, like what kind of villa is it? Like what's the quality? Like is it a tree house? Does a tree house count as a villa? But yeah, I get what you
Yeah.
mean. But in some aspects, I think sometimes that kind of stuff can be difficult to capture in data. As in,
Okay.
yeah, I think that's one thing that would probably be difficult. Like the data we have here is just very like not very. It's what is displayed and tersimpan, saved in Airbnb. But
I see.
sometimes that kind of stuff like treehouse or not, maybe it's like you need to really extract that from like reviews, and mostly you can just see it from human eye from the pictures.
I
So
see.
yeah.
Okay. Okay, I see. So our data set is comparing properties that look similarly on the data. Okay, got it, got it. On one aspect, the static data. Um, have we ever tried to, let's see, okay, okay, I can understand where this is coming from. I had a kind of a thought that occurred to me. Um, does this system evolutionary get better with time? Is it self-correcting? Does it have like a
Uh,
feedback cycle that understands if it made an accurate
no,
comparison?
no. Unfortunately, this does not have that. Actually, yeah, that's actually interesting. Sorry, that's also something I want to get into. The machine learning part of it,
Right.
since this is just a script, right? So it just takes whatever you input one time and then just runs in, gives out the output. It doesn't have an learning aspect to it. So yeah.
Got it. Got it. Hey, Kyla, I'm going to change the theme of this discussion because this is actually turning into a discussion rather than actually a presentation. But that's okay. That's okay. That's okay. I still like to have this because let's just say we'll probably use this internally now, and you can feel more free to speak about like what isn't perfect. It's actually that's really good because that way I think it gives actually a lot of material for somebody in the future to think about and do. So you're not on stage anymore. This isn't like for the public. This will be more used, I think, internally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. All right. So we have a few premises here, right? So we're making a premise, an assumption that we can compare property to property based on attributes that are, so let's say, listed, right? But let's say if there was, I'm thinking of running data, actually, right? Like performance data. Like you are,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
let's say this. Let's say this is how I would actually. I know this isn't perfect, but because of some, let's say, administrative, but I would actually trace this. I would trace what is the most similar property to you based on your booking history, right? So if you launch, right, and within the first, let's say, 2 weeks of launch, you have a certain pattern of bookings that happen, then you're probably going to be more similar to that, let's say this property here, right? Or this property here.
Hmm.
So I know that's not because the revenue projection is supposed to come before actually we've made a partnership. But I think that's one of the things that actually makes it hard to actually get an accurate projection because I've noticed certain properties by their booking behavior, that is what actually puts them in the same category. Because if they get in the end, it's how you're doing on the platform itself, right? So the data you're trying to extract is not just single sided. It's not like static object to static object. I think it's dynamic, right? Um, it's like when you run it, what runs similar to you, right? What are the trending patterns? And I think if you let's say if you started comparing that, if you said, okay, this is the booking pattern that you have in the first 2 weeks. We've sampled. I know it's a little bit more limited, but I think this data could be cool. We've sampled, I think, in total Bukit Vista history, maybe about let's say 200, right? 200 different properties. Your booking behavior now starts to look like this property's booking behavior, which probably indicates that you have got a similar ranking to this property, right? And so we've had this
Yeah.
property on our books for 3 years. This is what the booking behavior looks like now for the next 3 years minus the first week, right? And you're probably going to have a similar pattern like that. Okay, if you have a similar pattern like that, then this is what your forecasted revenue would be.
Okay. Yeah.
Would that be too radical of a departure from the current way of thinking, or would that be interesting?
Okay. I think it's interesting, definitely. But as you said, there's a few points to note. Like, for one thing, is that now we do like compare with properties from Airbnb in general, like not just properties uh uh from our partners. I think what you mentioned before is we compare it with our own partners. Like, is that true, sir? Or
Yes, yes. It's a little bit like this. You're from industrial engineering, correct, Kyla?
yes?
Okay, so
Yeah.
I think every process, you know something about butterfly effect, right? You know, you start a process in the same position, but as they progress, they have very different outcomes, right? I think that a lot of things that happen within, like, let's say, the context of a social network, which is pretty much what Airbnb is a little bit kind of like there's an initial starting stage, right? That's t equals 0. So you start off this particular way, but what happens over time might be vastly different because of different things like do you respond to inquiries, right? Do you actually
Yeah.
give good service to your guests and such and that? So even though you might have t equals 0 is the same, right? You're starting off like similar, but over time that's going to become different. And so that's where actually the management service value comes in, is that you might actually start here, but without good management service, you might actually end up kind of retrograding, right? But what I'm thinking is we're creating a projection based on t equals 0, right? We're basing it kind of like on initial steady state of this is they're pretty much starting the game with the same kind of stuff as you are, minus the human factor type things like the style, the design, which is a little bit more maybe harder to pull in as concrete data, right? But where I think things actually start becoming more interesting in terms of projection is what happens after t equals 0, right? What happens actually after the first week, the second week, and such. Um, because at the end of the day, what we're doing is, I think we are essentially establishing a ranking for a particular property. We're saying let Bukit Vista manage its property, and you will achieve a certain ranking. So let's look at, let's say, what the initial performance is of your property, and then our job is to just kind of like project that forward for the next 3 years, right? For however long the partnership is. So I think that would be a foundational shift in just the algorithm itself for projections, don't you?
Right?
Would that be a pretty big shift from the way that this algorithm is constructed at the
Yeah,
moment?
yeah.
Okay.
I think really it would just be a change of data source, really, but it would limit us. I mean, it would limit us to just all the properties we have
Hmm.
instead of like there's. I mean, we have so much properties, but there are like a lot in Airbnb, right? So
Correct. Correct.
it would limit us. I think that's one thing to know. But I do agree that it would um, be a better representation
Uh-huh.
because in like of I mean our performance. Like we use the data from what we've experienced, from
Yes.
what our company has used.
Yes.
So yeah,
Yes.
yeah, I see your point. I see your point.
I,
Um,
I, I would say it wouldn't limit us entirely because we would have one component that is essentially, let's say, the t equals 0, right? This is comparing, this property against all the properties on the marketplace. But then when we create a revenue projection, we can't create a revenue projection with other people's data because we don't service. Let's say the t is 0 plus, right? What happens after you give the property to us? We can't really use that data anyway because that isn't going to be the same. You know what I'm saying? Because it's what our services do afterwards that actually creates the engagement. And also, I think there's context around prices. Let's say that you harvest right from scraping the Airbnb site, which is you only see one time frame, right? You see the price today is 168, but pricing, I think, also changes over time, right? Like they might have 168 today, and they might have, let's say, something a little bit different later on. And the other thing that notice could change is even the size of the building. Sometimes people add an extra bedroom, or they include a new amenity, or they add something else. So you have, I think, a higher amount. So you have these two data sets, right? One is it's really accurate because we have gotten it ourselves, and we have like a lot of visibility into it. We see a movie, right? The other is kind of like a collage. You see a lot of snapshots of different properties, but you only see like one particular frame of each property's history. So either way, I think our data sets are going to be somewhat imperfect, right? One, we don't maybe have the variety. Second one, we don't have the amount of time, right? We don't see the time projection. What do you think about that?
okay. Well, firstly, you mentioned that we have a limited view of the price, right? Of the price on Airbnb, the goods. We actually do have the year-on-year growth based on our redash data and the
Oh,
occupancy. Yeah.
okay.
So if you look to
Got
this rate.
it. So you're saying we scrape the data pretty frequently, so we can kind of track the similar properties from time to time, right?
Hmm.
Okay. All
This is
right.
um,
Okay, interesting, interesting. Um, what?
Yeah,
What?
I was gonna mention something, but I actually think it would be good to have both sides in a way because if we're looking at the properties from Airbnb, we
Right.
can still look at the market because I see like in business there's like two sides, right? From the internal side of a company, the management, how we our system works, all that, and then there's the external side from the market, what the market needs and stuff. So I think what we're doing now is we're focusing too much on the market side. I see your point, of course, like
Yeah.
but from the market side, I think is also a good point.
Mhm.
If we could combine between having scraping data from Airbnb as a whole, and we also see from our management side,
Right.
I think that would make it a more holistic view. But
I think
I
so.
can't really, yeah,
Okay. Okay. Let's take that into account. So that could be probably a starting off point for, let's say, the next person, right? Really thinking about
mhm,
how to kind of balance the internal data that's limited in let's say the number of properties, but it's more complete in, let's say, the timeline. We can see the booking records with far more accuracy, right? And we have the market data, which gives us just a single frame. It's like vast, but it's not so high resolution. We can't see kind of across, the time projection, how deep each particular property went. Okay, interesting, interesting. That's cool. It's interesting that what you find out when you actually go a little bit deeper. All right, great. What else were you working on, Kyle, besides this projection?
mhm. Um, the other project I was working on was some redash visualizations.
Okay.
So, um, Vidi and I talked about how some visualizations can be added
Mhm.
because we have the Tableau. I don't know if I still have
Which one do you enjoy looking at more, Redash or Tableau?
I actually enjoy looking at Tableau more. I feel like Tableau gives more information,
I feel like
but
that way too. I feel like
right?
I'm out. I feel like Redash is kind of ugly, and it's slow, which makes it hard to. It makes it hard
It's
to
slow. It's
engage with. Yeah, you can't just like ask a new
slow.
question. You have to like reload, reload, reload. So
Mhm.
Tableau, I do. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree, sir. So, Vidi mentioned that the data on Tableau was had a few missing stuff, or like it was wrong or something. So I didn't really get into it much feedback, but I used Tableau as a reference to make some visualizations on
Hmm.
Redash. Yeah.
I see.
Yeah. Actually, need to look for it first because I'm pretty sure I put some on the inside. Yeah, insides. Now it's a bit loading.
No, you see, that's what I mean. Okay.
Yeah. So this is one that I helped make last time. Even this, it took a while because okay, so and this is not as nice actually. I think the pivot table is.
Okay.
So this is a booking goes by
Can you order food? Yeah.
okay. So one of the points was that we had a visualization for our guest origin somewhere. It's not here. I don't have it in before and it was in the intent. But we had one like in the shape of a map, and you could see which country has how many guests.
Okay.
And Kaviri and I decided to make a visualization to improve on that since we want to see like how is the booking growth by for each guest origin like according to time because the previous one was very static, right? You can only see at one point of time how many guests were coming from other countries.
Okay.
So yeah, this is one of the things we made. Again, it was inspired by
Guest
Almost
origin map. Oh, we had a
the
guest origin map before.
yeah, there was that, right? But
Yeah.
we decided to make one that showed growth as well. And yeah, um, it took a while because there we needed to do some cleaning first.
Got it.
But
Okay.
yeah, this is one thing I noticed. Our data is also could be improved on the um, cleanliness because there are a lot of duplicate values, so it took a while to clean it.
Okay,
Yeah,
so there's data cleanliness issues you're saying, yeah?
yeah.
I see. What are the most of these issues revolving around? Are they around just like we've done a bad job collecting it or organizing it? What's the root cause you think for data cleanliness?
I guess for the input actually. When inputting the data, I don't think there's like a set value. Like if you had a drop down like this, it would make it easier, right? But I think here people had to type it out so that it was different. For like an example for Indonesia, you have Indonesian,
Oh, I
Indonesia
see.
with a small I. So that's what I meant. Yeah,
I
yeah.
see. I see. I see. I see. I see. So we have to. Why does it come through with so many weird exceptions? Like we're is this coming from Airbnb or?
This is from our data, our booking data.
But that's harvested from air. Oh, it's harvested from all the different channels. Okay, so probably each channel has a different way of representing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
I see. I see. Okay, all right, got it. Got it. Okay, translating human sort of tags into something that is the same. All right, cool. Okay, that's
yeah.
it. All right, my last question is this: if you had more time here, what would you have worked on? What would you have kind of liked to focus and develop more?
Okay. Wow, I feel like obviously I would have worked on the property possession more.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, because even I did actually discuss it last week, or there were a lot of room of improvement and also I just remembered this. I wanted to tell you this before, but I forgot. Is that we wanted to do something for how we present it to our partners
Uh
because
huh.
before I didn't know, right? Like, okay, I upload this piece bigger, but it's only a picture. So what partners see just a picture of the graph? And apparently, Sarwata, Kak is sometimes called to have a meeting with a partner with Moana and so to explain what goes behind the position, like what I did to you, explain to you now. So there are some partners who are like who want to know where these numbers come from, and that's what we wanted to work on, like automation to for each projection. We don't just give the projection, but also make an illustration, a little distinction or something, so it's easier for them to understand. So, but that's something I didn't get to work on. That's one. That's one. Two, the company projection. I also held on to that for a bit. Sometimes for a few months I did that for somebody. And I remember you commented on the Twitter card that is there any way to make this not just from the company growth, but also like from other variables like our our employee growth and all that. And
Mm.
yeah, you mentioned that, right? And I didn't chance to, I did do some research, but it was kind of difficult to find um, best practices on the internet of like um, prediction forecasts that are not just from past history but also from other variables.
I agree. I agree. I think
Yeah,
I think right now forecast based on past history is very weird, right? Because what does past history tell us? It tells us nothing,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
They're having such
yeah,
cataclysmic
exactly.
changes. So I remember at the beginning of the pandemic, all the data scientists were realizing that their algorithms were breaking because they were just too reliant
Mhm.
on past history.
Yeah,
And now it's actually a little bit more yeah, now when you have let's say a lockdown happen or you have sort of like these I don't know if anybody's creating the right models for that. Like the way I visualize this is that there needs to be kind of like a like kind of an equation with a different weight, right? And you need to choose what your I guess KPIs are, and then what the data science does is it corrects the weight of each KPI, right? So let's say you have a weight for government restrictions, right? How restricted are governments in Indonesia versus the outside world? There might be a cross product of that, right? If the outside world is open and Indonesia is strict, then it's like zero, right? But if Indonesia is open, outside is strict, then it's zero. So that then multiplies against another thing, right? Which is, okay, what is the desirability of this? What is the key demographic, right? And how big is each demographic? Are people coming for this? So then you have another filter, right? And then depending upon the strength of each demographic, then that gets multiplied with the, let's say, a corresponding budget for each demographic, right? And then that gets multiplied. So I would actually structure it like that because industrial engineering, right? You kind of think of it as one stage,
Yeah, yeah,
next stage, goes to the next stage. So I would structure like let's say a projection to be like as an industrial engineer. Let's say you're trying to take oil and refine it into like gas or something, right? And you start with the crude stuff, and then you kind of have to figure out how many stages do I need, right, to get this over to finally become refined. What is the capacity I need at each stage, and how much energy will each stage consume? I think it's similar for a forecasting algorithm that it's like, okay, what's the first stage? If the first stage is terrible, then you're not going to be able to do anything. If the government outside and inside is very restrictive, that cross product is zero. So nothing flows through, right? Oh, and then we've discovered another thing. Oh my God, I'm getting so excited, right? Then you can add, right, the products and the additions. Then you can add how much internal market there is in Bali, right? By
yeah.
understanding what is the total number of people who are trapped in Bali and still circulating, and then what are their demographics, what are their budgets, and how much, and then multiply by against the total availability in the market, right? And then you would get a good idea, and then what you believe your success level is, right? Are you in the first quartile, second quartile, third quartile? And then I think you could multiply the first, I guess the growth with the thrive part with the survive part, right? And then you would get kind of like a really accurate projection. So
Yeah, yeah.
I was thinking that. I was thinking oh, that thought just occurred to me. Do you think that has any merit? Is that something that somebody in the future could pursue?
Yeah, I think that this all forecasting is a very, I think it's an old, not old. It's been around for a while. Like what we use now is Holt Winters. And Holt Winters
Yeah.
has been around for a while, So there's definitely, I do believe that there will be improvement. But it's not widely accessible now, which is the
Right.
unfortunate part, right? Because that kind of data, what you all mentioned, is very dynamic and it's so fast paced, and you didn't think of it before.
Right.
So, and yeah, it was that's the thing. The how is like the question.
Mm, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Holt Winters, we understood actually from talking with a data scientist at Uber, and he said Holt Winters is probably your best way to go because it's simple. It looks at, but it's basically linear regression, right? It just kind of takes a look at what's happened in the past. And but
Yeah.
what I've realized is this: Holt Winters is not really. It's actually becoming a limitation, Kyla, because we think of like let's say we've added a lot of smart people from ETB into the company, right, over the past 3 months. And they're coming up with new ways of unblocking problems that we had before, right? Holt Winters does not take that into account and will give us a projection based on a previous team that we had before, right? Holt Winters
Yeah.
won't be able to predict what a lockdown will do to our future revenue because these are all not happened in the past yet. So what I'm finding is Holt Winters is actually kind of a problem because it kind of keeps us from innovating. It keeps us like more on a steady track. Let's say we're a fully optimized company like Uber. We're already so dominant. We've reached our maximum market potential. We've reached, whatever. And what we're really trying to develop is operational efficiency, right? So we don't like leave any money on the table, so to speak, that should be there. Then I think Holt Winters is good. But if you're in a startup and you're adding like let's say really exciting new inputs every month, and those inputs don't get calculated into the revenue forecast, then I'm wondering if that model is basically accurate or not, right?
Mm. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, that can be a good topic for the next person to think about, or for you to think about if you want to think about it.
Yeah, 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 definitely. It's something to think about. Like, um, again, I feel like I'm very applying things I learned in college. So it's true what you said. It didn't really occur to me that we're in a startup that is having past data is not that as accurate. Like, yeah, I know, I can see what you mean. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Anyway, that's it. I won't take up any more of your lunchtime, Kyle. I'll let you try to
Yeah.
squeeze in a bite before you start again. But thank you very much for the. Oh, hey, Eka, can you take this? Eka, can you take this? Okay. Thank you very much for the time, and I'll definitely
Of
be
course. No,
there
thank you,
at
sir.
your farewell. And I got a new wrap for you too, as well. So that.
Oh my God, yes, I will have it on camera this time. I regret not having my phone ready to record that.
Okay. Okay.
I will
Yeah.
see it
That's
documented for the rest of my life.
okay. Good. 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 I'm glad you'll enjoy it. So I'll see you later then this afternoon.
I'll
Okay,
see
Kyla.
you. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you so much for your time, sir. This was a
Thank
great
you.
conversation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You too. Okay. I'll see you later, Kyla.
No, 'cause, like, yeah, sorry, because like I saw you talk at my school, and I was like, oh, this guy's so cool.
I can't believe that. Yeah, now it's like it's just like full circle. It's like full circle. Well,
Yeah, full circle.
yeah.
And like this was an Asian American.
If things don't work out at Maybank, please come back and think about us. Yeah.
Oh my God. Oh my God, are you for real?
Yeah. Yeah. You didn't know? Wait. You,
I mean, Lily's kind of like, did Mr. Jing like talk to me? And I was like, what? No. What are you talking about?
oh, yeah. Oh, okay. No, no. We would consider hiring you full time if you wanted. Yeah.
Not
But we thought that you had already crossed that bridge because you went to work at Maybank, right? But
that. It was rushed, definitely.
oh,
I would
really?
say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I have another story of somebody who went corporate and then came back. Oh,
Oh.
Ara. Yeah, Ara used to be our HR. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, let me tell you the story. Maybe I'll ask Ara to talk to you later, right? Because I was kind of
Yeah,
surprised.
yeah.
I was surprised you would work at a bank because I thought if you're enjoying yourself in a startup, going to a bank is not startup, right? Going to a bank is you
Yeah,
follow the
yeah,
rules.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. It's
okay,
only
but
like
what happened? I'll tell you the story, and then I'll ask Ara to tell you herself, right? So Ara started as an intern with me, and we
yeah.
also met at a talk that I gave like 3 years ago at UGM. So I was talking about hospitality and innovation and all this stuff,
That's so
right?
true.
So we were talking about that, and then later what happened was she asked a lot of good questions during the talk. She was like, "What do you think about this? How are you going to make how are you going to create benefits through the community? What are you going to do about environmental impact? All these. How are you going to carry the culture with you?" So I think I gave pretty good answers because later she applied as an intern, right? And over 3 years, she went from intern to I think hospitality, and then eventually she became our HR director. She
Yeah.
started the entire HR department, and this program, right, going out to universities and speaking. I started with Ara. So December, we had a very sad farewell for her because she had been like kind of a she's a daughter of Bukit Vista, right? She had actually kind of built this company with her own hands and everything. So it was very inspirational, and it was also sad because she went to work for Samsung and she got a area manager, so she was in charge of like training all of the Samsung employees in Central Java,
Wow.
right? So
Yeah.
a pretty big role. But she did it for 6 months, and she decided it wasn't the right place. Um, for her, I think it was mostly about that. Well, I'll let her tell about her own story, but it's mostly about that growth. Here, there was no limit to pretty much how far you can grow or what you can do. You can keep on coming up with ideas. We'll keep on supporting you. But she said at Samsung, eventually, she reached her peak on the first day. I think it was like you're a manager, and that's it, right? So
Okay.
that's
Yeah.
the place for you. So she's back now, actually. So she came
Yeah,
back,
yeah.
and so, anyways, I said I would talk to you, and this is kind of like part of it, I guess, right? So one is I want to know kind of like what you really enjoyed about your time here, but two, yeah, if you'd like to return, what Lilith and I saw in you is okay. I'll be frank, right? So they said that your data science skills could be improved, but where there is possibility is your leadership style, right? You're curious, you're open-minded, you manage people, you kind of put them into the places where they need to be, and you're assertive like that. And I think that is a really good attribute. And Lilith is also looking for somebody like that on her team. She needs somebody to help manage kind of like the team flow and stuff. So anyway, the offer is okay. Let's just say if you want to consider it, just have more. I'll probably have more conversations with you just about like
Yeah.
learning
Yeah.
about corporations work or whatnot. But if you
Wow.
want to pursue this more, the door is open for that. We are hiring for somebody to lead, and I think she did. Lois and I both regretted that you won't be here longer, right? So that I think is something to be said. Okay. Okay. All right. Anyway, think about it. We'll keep in touch, and if things like change a bit or whatever, we'll make space for you, Kyla. All right? I think you'd be I think it'd be really good to have you on this mission here.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I need to
Okay.
be considering me. But, yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm sorry. I'm
Okay.
just with
No,
what.
hey, I looked at your background actually, and I saw sort of. It is kind of funny because both you and Lilith also are from Itabe and in industrial engineering, right? And I
Yeah.
remember I had a similar discussion with Lilith at the very beginning too. Lilith was brand new here, and she was actually kind of interesting because we generally haven't seen that kind of talent in Bali before, right? So
Yeah.
normally we have to hire like in Java and other places in Jakarta to get people who can actually direct. But she had a really good background, industrial engineering, ETB. And what I noticed was I didn't know this at the time, but an industrial engineer was actually the right type of engineer for this type of company. I didn't ever think about that before because essentially industrial engineering, you're thinking about how to engineer a process. And nobody has actually applied that type of way to hospitality, which is
Yeah,
a lot of
yeah, exactly.
companies, right? Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah.
So surprisingly, it actually worked out. I think Lilith actually started as a data scientist and then she became director of BI, right? So anyway, Kyla, the idea is out there. We would definitely want to have you if you'll consider us. And yeah, good luck with Maybank. I wish you all the luck there. But
Thank you.
if things don't work out, whatever happens, then let us know. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. All right.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
But yeah.
Okay. All right. I'll let you have some lunch now, and then we'll talk again later. All right. I'll see you at the wrap.
Right. Have a good afternoon, sir. Thank
Likewise, Kyla.
you
Okay.
so much for your time.
Absolutely. Okay. See you.